Conor Oberst, Oberst. Conor Mullen Oberst, born February 15, 1980, is an American singer-songwriter best known for his work in Bright Eyes. He has also played in several other bands, including Desaparecidos, The Faint previously named Norman Baylor, Commander Venus, Park Ave, Conor Oberst and the Mystic Valley Band, Monsters of Folk, and Better Oblivion Community Center. Oberst was named the Best Songwriter of 2008 by Rolling Stone magazine. Early life and education. Conor Mullen Oberst was born on February 15, 1980, the youngest of three boys and raised in Omaha, Nebraska, to Matthew Ryan Oberst, SR, an information manager for Mutual of Omaha, and Nancy Oberst, an elementary education director for Omaha Public Schools. Oberst had two older brothers, Matthew Ryan Oberst Jr. and Justin H. Oberst. Matthew was a teacher and part-time musician until his death in 2016 and helped finance one of Oberst's self-released independent albums. Matt was also in the indie band Sorry About Dresden, which Conor played in from time to time. Conor has been writing and releasing music from a very young age, releasing his first solo album when he was 13. Oberst was educated at St. Pius X/St. Leo School in Omaha, Nebraska, where he was in the school choir and other musical groups, and Creighton Preparatory School, also in Omaha, Nebraska. He briefly was enrolled at the University of Nebraska and dropped out after 3 semesters to tour. Career. Early career. The Faint 1994-1995. In 1994, following a Slowdown Virginia show, Oberst, along with Joel Peterson and brothers Todd Fink and Clark Beachell, formed a band called Norman Baylor, later known as The Faint. A few days later, Oberst told the other members of the band that they had a show in 2 weeks at Kilgore's. Despite having never performed together, they produced 9 songs to perform. An album signed Sierra was released on cassette only in 1995. Commander Venus 1994-1998. Oberst formed the rock band Commander Venus in 1994 with Tim Kasher, Ben Armstrong, and Rob Nansel. They recorded 2 albums, Do You Feel at Home, 1995, and The Uneventful Vacation 1997. Kasher later went on to form Cursive, and Nansel was the co-founder of Saddle Creek Records. Kasher left the group to focus on Cursive as they were about to go into the studio to record their second album, and was replaced by Todd Beachell. Commander Venus disbanded in 1998. The Magnetas 1996. The Magnetas were only active for a very brief period of time in 1996 in Omaha. Along with Oberst, band members included Todd Fink the Faint and Chris Hughes Beep Beep. They recorded 3 songs, only one of which, Annex Annex, was released on Ghostmeat Records' Parts compilation album. 2 other confirmed recordings exist, Clatter and Science Fiction in Schools. Park Ave 1996. In January 1996, Oberst began playing drums in a group named Park Ave, alongside Clark Beachell, Jen Bernard, Neely Jenkins, now in the band Tilly and the Wall, and Jamie Williams, also in Tilly and the Wall. The group only played between 10 and 15 shows and made a handful of recordings, several of them with Mike Mogies as producer. The group disbanded in 1998 when Williams, the singer and primary songwriter, moved to London, England. In 1999, Ur9 Records released their only album, When Jamie Went to London. In London. Then, in London. In London. Then, din, in London. Din, London. Din. We Broke Up, which has also now been re-released under Team Love. Bright Eyes 1995, 2011, 2020 present. Oberst founded Bright Eyes as a solo project in 1995, and after the disbanding of Commander Venus, released a collection of songs written and recorded 1995-1997 in January 1998. This was followed quickly by Letting Off the Happiness, released in November of the same year. It featured members of numerous bands and was recorded in the Oberst family basement. 1 year later, Bright Eyes released its first EP, Every Day and Every Night. Bright Eyes' third album, Fevers and Mirrors, was released in May 2000. It was ranked 170 on Pitchfork's list of the top 200 albums of the 2000s. With the release of 2002's Lifted or The Story Is in the Soil, Keep Your Ear to the Ground, Bright Eyes received national attention and Oberst was proclaimed a breakthrough artist by several notable magazines. On January 25, 2005, Bright Eyes simultaneously released two new albums, The Folk I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning, and more electronic pop digital Ash in a Digital Urn. Time listed I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning as one of the top 10 albums of 2005. The Four Winds EP was released in March 2007, followed by their seventh album, Casadago, in April. The song Four Winds was named a Top 100 of 2007 by Rolling Stone. Oberst spent the next 2 years focusing on other music projects, and in June 2009 told Rolling Stone he wanted to make one final album with Bright Eyes before retiring the group. The band subsequently released The People's Key on Conor's 31st birthday, February 15, 2011. In January 2020, the band announced their return to both touring and recording after a 9-year hiatus, and released their 10th album, Down in the Weeds, Where the World Once Was, on August 21, 2020. Desaparecidos 2001-2002, 2012-present. Oberst is a guitarist and singer for Desaparecidos. The music and lyrics of Desaparecidos differ greatly from Bright Eyes, having more in common with punk rock than Oberst's usual folk rock. The lyrics are generally social commentary of the state of affairs in America and the pitfalls of the suburban lifestyle, as opposed to the more introspective lyrics of Bright Eyes. Desaparecidos was active as a band between 2001-2002, but have regrouped to play shows in the Omaha area. They had two releases in 2002, a single for The Happiest Place on Earth and the full-length Read Music/Speak Spanish on Saddle Creek Records. In 2012, the band regrouped and self-released the 7-inch single Mary Keiki Copa/Baxel, as well as continuing to tour. In 2013, they released two more 7 inches independently, Anonymous/The Left Is Right and Te Amo Camila Vallejo/The Underground Man, dedicated to the Chilean student activist Camila Vallejo, and complemented these releases with yet another tour. In 2015, the band announced the release of a new studio album, Paola, on June 23 on Epitaph Records. On October 28, 2015, it was announced that Conor Oberst had been hospitalized due to laryngitis, anxiety, and exhaustion, according to a press release. The entirety of Desaparecidos' remaining tour dates were canceled, and Oberst returned to his hometown of Omaha to recuperate. Conor Oberst and the Mystic Valley Band, 2007-2012. In November 2007, it was reported that Oberst would work on a solo record with Jake Bellows, and that he and M. Ward would start a band and perform 2 late December shows in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Contrary to what was believed, the shows were not played with M. Ward, but rather with Nick Freitas and Jason Bosel. They also played a show in February in Mexico City, Mexico. On March 31, 2008, it was announced that Conor Oberst would play at the 2008 Reading and Leeds festivals. He also performed at the Electric Picnic in County Laois, Ireland, on August 31, 2008, the Cain's Ballroom in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Austin City Limits in late September 2008, shows across Australia in early October 2008, and the Warfield Theatre in San Francisco, October 24. Oberst also headlined the Friday night slot of the End of the Road Festival at the Larmer Tree Gardens in Wiltshire, held over the weekend of September 12–14, 2008. Conor Oberst released the self-titled album Conor Oberst, which was recorded in Tepoztlán, Morelos, Mexico, with Taylor Hollingsworth on guitar and Macy Taylor on bass, on August 5, 2008 on Merge Records. In about mid-October, the band sold a new EP, Gentleman's Pact. It was limited to 1,000 copies and was only available on tour. The band placed limitations on how many were sold at shows. It has 4 unreleased tracks. 3 of them are pre-album songs, while Corina is a cover of a traditional folk song. Oberst and the band released their second album, Outer South, on May 5, 2009 on Merge Records. They have also released a documentary, One of My Kind, following the band from Conor's solo album to their most recent album, One of My Kind. Monsters of Folk 2009. Conor Oberst is one of the 4 members of the band Monsters of Folk. Other band members include Jim James of My Morning Jacket, M. Ward, and fellow Bright Eyes member Mike Mogies. The band members swap instruments and share vocal duties. The quartet released their self-titled debut album on September 22, 2009. Solo work 2008–present. Oberst released his first solo album, Water, in the form of a cassette tape when he was just 13. However, this album is difficult to find and is no longer sold. His second solo album was 2008's self-titled Conor Oberst. Throughout the end of 2012 and the beginning of 2013, Oberst embarked on a solo tour of North America and Europe, performing with Ben Broden on guitar and vibraphone. On the tour, he played songs from Bright Eyes, Mystic Valley Band, and Monsters of Folk, as well as playing new songs. Oberst released a new solo record, titled Upside Down Mountain, on May 19, 2014. He has been working with producer Jonathan Wilson Dawes, Father John Misty, and Swedish duo First Aid Kit. On October 14, 2016, Oberst released his 7th studio solo record, titled Ruminations, on Nonasuch Records. On January 18, 2017, Oberst announced a companion album to Ruminations called Salutations. Better Oblivion Community Center 2019. Oberst and Phoebe Bridgers revealed their oft-rumored new band, Better Oblivion Community Center, on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert on January 23, 2019, and released their eponymous debut album at midnight on January 24, 2019 out via Dead Oceans. Band members include guitarist Nick Sinner from Yet Yet Yes and drummer Carla Azor from Autolux. Personal life. In 2010, Oberst married Corina Figueroa Escamilla, whom he met in 2008 while recording music in Mexico. Oberst and Figueroa Escamilla separated amicably in 2017. In December 2013, Oberst was accused of sexual assault by a fan, leading to widespread media coverage. However, by July 2014, the fan had retracted the accusation, stating that the accusations were 100% false and that my actions were wrong and could undermine the claims of actual sexual assault victims, and for that I also apologize. Of the period in his life, Oberst said, "I'm not violent towards anyone." And for a second, to have the whole world think that the allegations were true about me just did a number on my psyche. He also went on to emphasize that he did not want to minimize how frequently women are sexually assaulted, citing the statistic that 1 in 4 women will experience sexual assault at some point, and saying that as painful and surreal and fucked up as my situation was, I don't ever want to use this as an example to justify anything. Oberst's brother Matthew died. He was 42. Oberst did not elaborate on his brother's death, except to say, "He basically fucking drank himself to death," a comment for which he has since expressed regret. "I guess Vice caught me on a day where I just didn't really give a fuck. I remember feeling bad afterwards when I had described the way my brother passed away, not thinking about my niece and nephew. They are definitely in the same 2020 interview. Oberst clarified the circumstances of Matthew's death. It was kind of inconclusive. He had sleep apnea, and he obviously struggled with addiction, but I came to find out it wasn't quite as clear-cut as I made it seem. Other projects. Saddle Creek Records. Oberst is one of the founding members of the independent record label Saddle Creek Records, an integral part of Omaha's indie rock scene, which hosts bands such as Cursive, Desaparecidos, The Faint, which left to start its own label Blank Wav, Rilo Kiley, which left to start its own label Butte Records, Bright Eyes, Two Gallants, Sun, and Teen Love Records. Oberst co-founded the Teen Love record label along with Nate Krinkle, longtime manager of Bright Eyes, to do different things, or smaller things, that we couldn't get everyone to be into at the same time at Saddle Creek, such as Tilly and the Wall, Willie Mason, the Fellis Brothers, David Dindero, Taylor Hollingsworth, and Jenny Lewis' solo album with the Watson Twins. Pagaturner's Lounge, Lounger's Lounge. Oberst opened Pagaturner's Lounge, a bar with Philip Schaffart, in 2012. Pagaturner's Lounge is located in the Dundee neighborhood in Omaha. The business name is a holdover from the bookstore that formerly occupied the space. Artistry, music style, and influences. Oberst was drawn to music at a very early age, due in part to his brother Matt's penchant for bands like The Smiths, R.E.M., Fugazi, and The Cure. He has cited The Cure's first singles collection, Staring at the Sea, as the first record he ever bought, as well as being one of his favorites. It must have been third grade. I bought the cassette at a local record store chain called Homer's in Omaha. I just loved the sound of Robert Smith's voice. It just sounded good. Some of his biggest influences and favorite songwriters are local musicians David Dindero and Simon Joyner. Joyner wrote the song Burn Rubber, which Bright Eyes covered on the Take It Easy Love Nothing single. The two used to do many tours together, usually on weekends due to Joyner having a family. Oberst has also been heavily influenced by the 1960s folk revival, mentioning Neil Young, Leonard Cohen, and country singers Emmylou Harris, John Prine, and Townes Van Zandt. Harris sang on a few tracks on Bright Eyes' I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning. As a prolific and well-known musician in the folk genre, he has sometimes been defined as a new Bob Dylan. He covered Neil Young's Out on the Weekend, collaborating with Mike Mogies, Jim James, and M. Ward in concert. He performed the Townes Van Zandt song Rex's Blues live with fellow musician Steve Earle. He has also performed two of John Prine's songs live, Crazy as a Loon and Wedding Day in Funerval. Oberst was greatly influenced by Daniel Johnston, whose Devil Town was covered and featured on Noise Floor, and profoundly influenced by Elliott Smith, stating in an October 22, 2003 All Things Considered interview that, "Sometimes when you're not feeling good, you have to listen to really sad music like Elliott Smith's, and that Smith wrote this." Oberst also said he liked to listen to Elliott Smith's songs when he couldn't find anyone to talk to on the phone, and thought that it was sad that through his music, Smith had the ability to answer feelings in others that he was unable to answer in himself. A live cover of Smith's The Biggest Lie is featured on Motion Sickness. Discography. As a solo artist, studio albums, soundtrack albums, extended plays, singles, in bands, Bright Eyes discography, Commander Venus discography, Desaparecidos discography, O's discography, O's discography, O's discography, O's discography, O's discography, Parkath discography, Monsters of Folk discography, Better Oblivion Community Center discography. Guest appearances: